I am here today talking about DBS, deep brain stimulation, a lot of the decisions and questions that go into it. And I'm fortunate enough to be here with therapy consultant from Boston Scientific, Alaine. How are you doing?
Hi, thanks for having me, Mel. I'm doing great.
Great to have you. And Scott is a person with Parkinson's. He's been living with Parkinson's for 17 years, and he is considering deep brain stimulation. Thank you so much for joining us, Scott.
The pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Great. So can you share first, Alaine, like who are you and what is your role?
Sure. So hi, everyone. Thanks for having me, Mel. My name is Alaine Keebaugh, and I am a DBS therapy consultant for Boston Scientific, and I live in Jacksonville, Florida.
Thanks. And Scott, what about you? Just a quick little intro. We'll get into the details soon.
Sure. Well, my name's Scott Ryder. I'm married to my high school sweetheart, Kelly. We have 3 wonderful kids, and I live in Beaufort, South Carolina.
Ooh, nice. 2 Southerners. I like the South. Okay. So let's get into it. Scott, can you tell us a little bit about your Parkinson's story? As much as you want to, about your diagnosis, symptoms, what you started, and then in terms of treatment, and then how DBS came into the picture.
Sure. Well, my story is probably not very different than a lot of people's story that have Parkinson's. There's the official date of diagnosis, which was 17 years ago. And then looking back, I realized that I started really showing symptoms about 5 years prior to that. So it's been part of my life so long, honestly, I don't remember life without Parkinson's. Like most people, I started on a low dose of medication, which was relieved my symptoms, which were a slight tremor in my right hand, but mostly I was experiencing toe curling when I would run. Running has always been a big part of my life. And that kind of led me down a journey that took about 3 years to discover that I did indeed have Parkinson's disease. And then my dosage of medicine has increased over time. And that's kind of why we're talking today, because there's concerns associated with that, obviously, with that increase of dosage of medication.
Right. Okay. So can you talk to me about like how much medication are you taking right now?
Oh gosh, I could go get you that strip and show you. It's
okay. So it's too long. That's what we know. It's too long.
Yeah. I mean, I will tell you, I take medicine every 4 hours, and it's just it's a big burden and a big part of my life. And sometimes I forget it and sometimes I remember it. And it's kind of crazy when I look how many pills I actually take every day.
Right. Okay. So that is great. Thank you for sharing that. Alaine, what is your role at Boston Scientific and how did you get into this work?
Sure. So I'll actually start by telling everyone how I ended up here. I actually started out my career in academic research. So I went to Emory University, where I got my PhD in genetics. I actually studied the role of genes in movement disorders. So those would be things like dystonia, OCD, even Parkinson's disease. And my goal back then, many years ago, was I wanted to make better animal models of these human diseases so we could find better solutions for patients. And it was during this time that I was actually working with a neurosurgeon to figure out how we could more precisely deliver different agents into the brains of these animal models that he invited me to come watch a DBS surgery, which is a very precise way, right, to deliver a device. And after the surgery, I told him that it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And so he said, well, then you must come and watch the team turn the device on. And so, of course, I did. And when I saw them turn the device on and the immediate results, that the patient got to tremor, it was one of those moments in your life where like the hair on the back of your neck stands up and you're there for a reason. And so fast forward now, 15 years later, and here I am with Boston Scientific as a therapy consultant for DBS. And it's the coolest job I've ever had. And I plan to have it for the rest of my life.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So sometimes I think that it found me, right? I didn't necessarily find it.
Yeah.
And then it's really also, it's just a great job. Not only do I get to witness people have an improvement in their quality of life and play my small role in that, but I get to do different parts of that every day. So for me as a consultant, no day is really the same. And I really try and offer a concierge DBS service experience. So I might, go out of my way to make sure that everyone feels noticed and special, and that they know they're not alone in this journey. And so for some people, that might be them attending a community event where they can get more educational resources on what's available to them. For others, it might be helping them know what their referral options are in their local area. And then it also might be as simple as just connecting them in with resources with their Parkinson's community. It may not even have anything to do with DBS. And then for patients who are already implanted, I also work closely with them, and I really just try to be there for them and remove hassles that they might experience along the way. So, one example of this might be if they lose their remote control of their charging puck, they can call me directly, right? They don't have to call our 1-800 number. Or if they move and they need to find a new physician that can manage their DBS, they can work with me to help locate someone in their new area. And so really I tell people, once they get implanted with Boston Scientific, they're kind of stuck with me for life. So we're friends and family forever after that. But
that's great. So, I think a lot of times when people are considering DBS, they go into that mode of, okay, I'm really going to start thinking about it, and it feels really overwhelming. So what do people not know about what a therapy consultant from any given DBS company can do? Like, how do you get involved with those people early on?
Yeah, so usually it's, it's kind of, sometimes it's kind of luck, or basically it's people who are already involved in their Parkinson's community, usually will interact with the therapy consultant at, say, a patient education event or a support group meeting, or at, like, we have a big First Coast Parkinson's run coming up on Saturday. So we might meet someone there. But I always say the earlier they meet us, really the better, because we can just help answer questions that they might have even pre-DBS. So, like, I know all the movement disorder neurologists in the area. I know other pharmaceutical reps in the area. We know about a lot of the different support groups that they can go to. So we really usually get introduced to them as a first touch that way. In some cases, actually, though, people might be interested in DBS and say, go and watch a national webinar, right, on Boston Scientific's website. And then when that happens, that if they're in my territory, their information will come back to me, and then I'll usually reach out to them because I know that they're interested now. It's a fine line we have to walk as therapy consultants, because I don't want to come across as, salesy and try to sell DBS to someone, because that's not helping anyone, right? But I do want to be there to offer them help at any point in the journey if they want it.
Great. Thanks. Scott, how did you then meet Alaine?
Well, a couple ways. Like everybody else, Parkinson's is sort of a journey. You start out and things evolve over time. And so one thing I did was my movement disorder specialist, my neurologist, brought up, wanted to know if I'd ever considered DBS, because she asked me a question. She said, what symptom bothers you the most? And for me, it's the tremor in my right hand. And I kind of get emotional even thinking about it, because it's a big decision. And then I had the benefit, I'm working on a documentary called Parkinson's Across America. So I've traveled across America from Miami to the West Coast, and I've been in, you name the Parkinson's facility, I've been there. All the top physicians really in the world I've had the benefit of meeting. And I would hear success stories about DBS, and my partner in this project has a Boston Scientific device implanted. And I saw how it changed his life. He went from crazy involuntary movement, dyskinesia, to much more stable and less movement than I present at the present. And so I've seen firsthand how Boston Scientific's devices changed the lives of people. I did some research, and just kind of through networking, I ended up meeting Alaine, who's been very helpful and incredibly kind, but also incredibly knowledgeable, and which I honestly care about more than the kindness. The kindness is great, but the knowledge is powerful.
Yeah. So do you have any questions for her about the DBS device from Boston Scientific? Or
I do. I have several that I've thought of. I guess just to lay it out on the table, I think I know, but I would like to hear it from the expert. I'd really like to understand, Alaine, what you would tell me the differences are between the Boston Scientific device And really, there's just 3 in the world that I could figure out, at least, and the other 2 companies that make the device.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question, Scott. So there are 3 companies on the market, and they each offer a lot of similarities, but they're also very different and unique in their own ways. And so I want to preface this by saying that all 3 companies work, right? So it doesn't matter which device you get implanted with, or if you have been implanted with one, they all work well and deliver good therapy. But what makes them different is, let's start with Abbott. So Abbott is probably the most limited in the programming options that it offers, but it does offer remote programming. And so for patients who might have difficulty traveling to a physician's office, this could be a good solution for them. The other company, Medtronic, they offer what they have termed brain sensing. And so while this doesn't today offer really any clinical benefits or values, and not every patient is going to have the biomarker that they're sensing for, it does offer the opportunity to be useful in the future. And so if you're someone who wants to contribute to research, that could be a really good option for you. And then with Boston Scientific, what makes us specific is that we have, or unique, is that we have what's called image-guided programming. And so this actually allows the physician to visualize where the lead is placed in the patient's anatomy. And it also allows the physician to see the electrical field that they're creating in the brain. They can further shape it, they can steer it, and they can basically move it around in any 360-degree rotation that they want to. They actually can also see structures that cause side effects. And so they can steer away from those. And no other device on the market can offer this type of advanced programming. So that's really what makes us unique. Yeah, so
Right.
Does that answer the question, Scott?
Yeah, but may I ask you one other question?
Thanks.
I asked this because I've seen some of this firsthand. Once you're in the Parkinson's world, if you get involved, you meet lots of people that have gone lots of different ways as far as treatment, different devices. And I'm convinced that recharging, it takes energy to run that device that may ultimately be implanted inside my head, right down in my brain. And so how the recharging works is really important to me, because I want to have the best quality of life I can with kind of the least interruption once I make this decision.
Yeah, okay. So that's a really good question. And one thing I want to remind everyone is that DBS doesn't cure Parkinson's disease, right? It basically just sets the timeline of disease progression back, in most cases, many years. And so as the Parkinson's evolves, you're going to want a system that evolves with it. And Boston Scientific offers different lifestyle choices for you that might fit with you, whatever lifestyle you're in. So we have a non-rechargeable battery, which has to be replaced every 3 to 5 years. And then, as Scott mentioned, we also have a rechargeable battery. And again, this might be different for different people, just like, choosing the different device company that you want. Some people may not want to have to bother with recharging, whereas other people may not want to have to look for a surgery in the near future. So the rechargeable devices fit with your lifestyle. So Scott, if you were to choose that, you could recharge it daily, you could recharge it weekly, or you could even recharge it monthly. And the amount of time that it's going to take you to charge is going to depend on your charging cycle. So for example, we usually tell most people if you charge weekly, and that's what most people do, you can expect to charge about an hour a week. I actually have a model of the recharging collar here. So I'm going to show you that. So it's like a charging collar. It has 2 pockets on each side, and you just put it around your neck like this. So on this side, I actually have a counterweight. You can see that in there. And then on the side where your battery is implanted, you would take a charging puck, turn it on, beeping. You put it in the pocket, and then when it starts charging, it stops beeping. And then you just wear it like this. So it's pretty cool. You can see it's like wireless. I could move around. I could go cook dinner or make coffee if I wanted to. And then when it's done charging, it will beep at you just like it did before, but the beep sounds different. It's kind of like beep, 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 beep. So it's like two beeps real quick together.
Great. And so my two questions for everybody listening is the DBS is still working while it's charging.
Yes.
Everything's great. Everything's working great. And then you said you could do it every day or every week or every month. So who is it? Are you having to do it every day because you're using so much stimulation? It's just turned up so much. Why would you have to do it every day?
No. So most people who do it daily do it 5 minutes a day. So now I'm speaking anecdotally from the patients that I work with. So some people, for them, it's easy. So I always tell everyone after they have it implanted, they need to get on some type of schedule, because as humans, right, we're more likely to do something if we're on schedule, and you don't want your device running out of energy and then turning off. So some people, they might get up every morning and they make their coffee every day. They spend 5 minutes doing that. So they can charge the 5 minutes they're doing it every day and it's done. That makes them feel comfortable with charging. Other people may watch a TV show every Sunday afternoon, and that's when they want to do it. So it's really just kind of like what fits into their lifestyle. And I even can tell them early on, you can try multiple different ways. Like, do you want to do it 5 minutes a day? You want to do it 1 hour a week? Or would you rather do it once a month? And of course, it's going to be longer. And those times I've given you are averages for like the average person. So it could vary, more or less. So yeah, but no, it stays on. That's a good question. I didn't think of that. It definitely stays on while you're recharging. And if you do use more power, it takes a little bit longer. But we've never had anyone that had to do it once a day. Like, that would be a whole lot of power.
Yeah.
So.
Scott, do you have more battery questions?
Well, I was just going to make an observation. It must be pretty forgiving, because I have several friends that have that exact charging device, the Boston Scientific, and one of them in particular is not as diligent as he maybe should be.
Right.
He does it like once a month while he's watching football or something on TV. And he says it's no big deal. It works easy. But my point is, he'd probably be better off doing a little bit each day, but he kind of forgets, and everything keeps on working, ticking like a clock. So it's pretty cool from what I can tell.
Yeah. And, if he's comfortable with that, and that, that doesn't stress him out, then more power to him.
Yeah. It works.
Who are the candidates who tend to want a non-rechargeable? What are those people usually looking for? And then what's the procedure to have to get it replaced every few years?
Yeah, so it's funny you asked that, Mel, because I've actually had this, I call it an argument with my husband. So he would want the non-rechargeable because he says he kind of wants to forget about it. He doesn't think he'd want to be reminded that he had that every day, right? I, however, would want the non-rechargeable, I think, right? I can't say for sure because I'm not there, but I wouldn't want to have to know I was going to have to go back and have another surgery, in a couple of years. And so I really just think it just depends on where everyone's headspace is. So from my experience, and I also think the physician that, the patient's working with, I think they play a big role too. So most of the physicians that I work with here in Jacksonville really like the rechargeable battery. So I would say 90% of the people we've implanted here have the rechargeable. Other places, that's definitely not the case, right? So it might be the non-rechargeable. And the few people that have kind of gone against what their physician said and really said, I want the non-rechargeable, they were younger, and they said exactly what my husband said. They just didn't want to have to think about it.
Yeah. Right. Any other questions? Battery or not, Scott?
No, I think those are kind of my two big outstanding questions.
Okay. When you think about it, what are your biggest concerns? I mean, obviously you want symptom relief, and you want that, 17 years ago. So what are the things that you're weighing right now?
Well, a couple things that, you start researching this and you learn a lot. I don't want to get to what I call the point of no return. And that's different for everybody. But what I mean by that, a person with Parkinson's, I've learned I can get to a certain point where maybe they would say, sorry, Scott, you're not a candidate for this surgery. I mean, I think that's unusual, but especially I think if I would get into cognitive issues, that would become, kind of overwhelming. So that I'm 63 years old, I'll just tell you that. And that's why I'm looking into it now, because I really want to get all my ducks in order before I do it. And I'm in the process of getting ready to do the evaluation to see if I'm a candidate for it. So I feel more in control by getting everything kind of organized ahead of time and not having to make a rush decision. But if you ask why I would consider not having the surgery, probably the only reason, which is not a good reason, is it's brain surgery. Just to be straight up, that's sort of scary. But I know so many people that have had success with it. That removes a lot of the fear. And I also realize, Mel, that I need a therapy, a solution. I need a system that can support me. I hope to live a long life. And I see DBS as a way to kind of increase my quality of life versus a disease that we know is a progressive disease, right?
Right.
So kind of some rational thoughts and some irrational thoughts all wrapped together, to be candid.
Yeah. Alaine, do you have any comments on what Scott said?
Yeah, I just, I really like Scott's approach to learning as much as he can before he's right up against making that decision. Because there is a window of opportunity, right, where you're eligible. You have to be a few years in to the diagnosis, but you also don't want to be so far along that the medication doesn't work. So there is a window of opportunity. And I've often found just working with different people that the more you can educate yourself on it, the more empowered you feel, right? And it's a decision that you make. And it can also take a long time. So I've seen some people where they decide they want DBS and they start the journey, right? But then it takes them 2 years to get there. Whereas other people started the education journey way before they were ready. And then by the time they were like, okay, I'm ready for DBS, all those other pieces were already in place. So they could go ahead and kind of start, just 3 to 6 months out. Yeah.
And Mel, I think what hit me one day is I thought about my dosage of medication when I was first diagnosed. And I kind of honestly lost track of the increase in that dosage over time. And I know enough about it that the side effects, they could kick in tomorrow. And what I'm really referring to is I do not want to have all that involuntary movement that I think most people recognize that's oftentimes associated with Parkinson's disease. So I want to be empowered, make the best decision I can when I'm not under a lot of stress or pressure. And I think the best way to do that is start learning about it early and get evaluated and research all the devices. So it's been it's been very educational and valuable.
Yeah. Like you said, you're young. You have a long way to go.
Thank you.
Yeah. Right. Actually, when I think about it, so is there something that you are looking forward to if you get DBS that will improve your quality of life? Aside from, not having to take so many pills, hopefully.
Sure. Obviously a decrease in medication. It's just a big hassle. And I mean, who would take medication if you didn't have to take medication for anything? I think not having a tremor in my right hand, and I can kind of tell my involuntary movements kind of crossing over to the left side of my body too. I sense that. And I also know that while this isn't clinical, and I probably couldn't prove it, but I've just observed through friends that I see other benefits that nobody could prove and say that are a result of DBS. But I just see an overall increase in quality of life from just their positive outlook. They just feel so much better because they've decreased their medication and their symptoms have changed. And that's exciting. There's not a whole lot to get excited about related to Parkinson's disease. Right?
Except making it better. Right.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. Thanks. Is there anything I didn't ask that I should have, Alaine?
No, I think you've asked some really great questions, and I think being able to, hear it from Scott's perspective, like how the patient thinks about it when they're exploring it. Scott, are there any other questions that I could answer for you?
You know what? I do have. I'm a person with Parkinson's, so I don't always remember what I should remember. And I did think of a couple things that I wanted to ask you. One is looking forward. Like if I get this tomorrow, is it still going to work in 5 years, or is it going to disappear? The impact of it. I mean, I believe I know the answer, but I want to hear it from the expert.
That's the million-dollar question, right? So the device will continue to working, indefinitely. We actually did just finish doing a 5-year study looking out at data from patients who were implanted. We did the 1 year, and now we just finished the 5-year evaluation. And at 5 years, they all were still getting therapy from the DBS device with the same quality of life improvement. So yes, we expect the device to continue working. No one's looked out at 10 years. We're going to be doing that, so that data will come out in the future. And the other comment I have to that is, Parkinson's does continue to evolve, right? So we mentioned earlier that DBS doesn't cure the disease, but it can set the timeline back. And so I think it's really important when you're choosing which device you have and to know that the Parkinson's is still there, right? It's still evolving, and you're going to want to choose a device that can evolve with the disease and to continue to keep up with the Parkinson's as it changes.
And the other thing I want to ask you, if I could just ask one other question, I think there's so much misunderstanding about Parkinson's. I often tell people, I think most people just think of Parkinson's as a tremor, but there's so much that goes on. But what symptoms, I guess, would be the best choice of words I could use. What symptoms can you tell me? Nothing's guaranteed in life, but can you tell me that you typically see patients get relief from after DBS?
Okay. So DBS is approved to help with motor symptoms, right? So these are going to be things like femoral rigidity, bradykinesia. It's also going to reduce fluctuations in your on time. And as you said, it could also reduce the amount of medication that you take. We don't tell people that it helps with their non-motor symptoms. So these will be things like sleep, gait, other things that impact your quality of life just as much. But, you did mention that sometimes you see, your friends who have other things improve, right? And so I think it's worth mentioning that sometimes it's hard for us to distinguish, or physicians to distinguish between the medication-induced side effects, the PD symptoms, right? And so a lot of medications, let's say, can interfere with sleep, or they can lead to brain fog. Or the motor symptoms can cause you to move slowly or not be able to exercise or not have the energy to exercise. And so DBS comes in and it can reduce the amount of medications that you have. It can, decrease your slowness, your rigidity. These are all things that can improve other things secondarily, right? So you have less rigidity, less tremor, you're now able to exercise more. And we know that exercise has positive benefits on DBS. So I think when we talk about that, DBS has specific things that it can influence, but improving those things secondarily might improve other things, like what you saw or see with your friends. If that roundabout answer makes sense.
It does. And I guess one comment I've never shared with you in the past, but I think it's worth mentioning. When I was traveling across America and got to interview all these top neurologists, the people that are on the front line implanting the devices and everything else, I don't remember who it was, but one of the neurologists used an example, sort of like the Richter scale. The difference between 6 and 7 is more than the difference between 2 and 3. And what I learned is that DBS has come so far in the past few years. I mean, the difference between DBS today and 3 years ago or 10 years ago is light years difference. I mean, I'm probably exaggerating a little bit. There's a huge difference between DBS today and the DBS 5 years ago. And that really gave me a sense of comfort to hear it from these people that are considered the best in the world.
Yeah, and towards that end, it's an exciting time to be in this field, right? So yeah, there are 3 companies on the market, right? And we're all competing, but what that means for patients is that the pace of how much further this technology is going to be pushed and how fast that's going to happen is exciting. And I think you're exactly right in saying that the DBS of today is worlds better than the DBS of 5 or 10 years ago. And there are even so many other things that from a physics standpoint that we can do programming wise that we couldn't do before, that plays into this that we can't really talk about yet. But no, you're exactly right, Scott. It's an exciting place to be for both people on my end of it and your end of it. in mouse.
Yeah, well, thank you both so much, Scott. I really hope you keep us updated on what your plans are and what you do, and whatever that outcome is. We look forward to hearing about it. Thank you so much, Alaine, for your expertise and sharing with everybody. I think the important thing that I want to get across to, or the people watching, is that you can reach out to a therapy consultant. They can be a huge ally for you as you start considering this and have questions and want to know more. They're there for you, and definitely take advantage of that. So thank you so much. And we will talk about DBS soon.
Thanks for having me. Thank you, Scott. Thanks, Mom.
Thank you.